There are some houses that simply feel wrong. You don't need to know what happened inside. You just feel it. The stillness, the chill in the air, the way time itself seems to stand still. In Villisca, Iowa, there's one such house. White, wooden, quiet. From the outside, it looks like any other Midwestern home, modest, unassuming. But in the summer of 1912, something happened there. Something unspeakable. Something that would forever stain its walls with silence and blood. This is the story of the Villisca axe murders. Of an entire family, slaughtered in their sleep. Of suspects who disappeared. Of secrets the town buried. And of a killer who was never caught. The year was 1912. Villisca, Iowa, population, just over 2,000. A town where people didn't lock their doors. Where church bells rang like clockwork, and neighbors knew each other by name. It was the kind of place where Sunday was sacred, lemonade was homemade, and your enemies lived 2 houses then, but you still waved. The Moore family was one of Villisca's most respected households. Josiah Moore, a successful businessman and loving father. His wife, Sarah, known for her involvement in the local Presbyterian church. And their 4 children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul. The youngest was just 5. They were happy, honest. The sort of family you'd see smiling in church pews, their children's laughter trailing through the summer air. Until one night in June, when that laughter would be silenced forever. June 9, 1912. It was a Sunday. The Moyes had attended the annual Children's Day service at the church. That night, 2 neighbor girls, Ina and Lena Stillinger, came to spend the night, guests of Catherine Moore. 8 souls. 1 hats. They would all be dead by dawn. The next morning, a neighbor noticed something odd. The Moore house was quiet. Too quiet. No one was outside doing chores. No breakfast smells wafted from the kitchen window. Josiah hadn't opened his store. And Sarah hadn't been seen on the porch. By 8:30 a.m., Mary Peckham, their neighbor, grew concerned. She knocked. No answer. She tried the door, it was locked. She let the family's chickens out, hoping someone would notice. Then, she called Josiah's brother, Ross. Ross arrived shortly after. He used his spare key to enter the home. What he found inside would haunt him for the rest of his life. The house was dark. All the curtains drawn. Every mirror covered with cloth. In the master bedroom, Josiah and Sarah were found bludgeoned to death. Their faces unrecognizable. A bloody axe lay nearby, its handle slick with horror. Upstairs, the 4 more children had met the same fate. And in the guest room, the Stillinger sisters. All 8 victims, slaughtered while they slept. It wasn't just the violence that shocked the town. It was the method. The killer had covered all the victims with bedclothes, as if ashamed. He'd returned to each body multiple times, swinging the axe again and again. But that wasn't the strangest part. Not even close. During the investigation, police found something unsettling, a cigarette butt. In the attic. Half-smoked, still fragrant. Had the killer been waiting? Watching. The theory emerged. The murderer had broken in while the family was at church. He'd crept into the attic and waited, listening to them return. Hearing their laughter, their prayers, their children saying goodnight. And then, once the house was silent, he emerged. A shadow on the night. An axe in his hand. A plan too twisted for fiction. There were no screams. No signs of struggle. Just silence. And blood. News spread quickly in a town like Villisca. Within hours, the house was swarming, not just with police, but with neighbors, reporters, curious onlookers, and tragically, souvenir hunters. By noon, the crime scene was compromised beyond salvation. People walked through the bloodstained floors, touched the victims' belongings. One man even picked up the axe and handed it around. Evidence that could have solved the case vanished. Inside, the town trembled. Parents gripped their children tighter. Farmers carried guns in broad daylight. Doors were locked for the first time in years. They knew something awful had walked among them. And worse, they knew it could come back. Whoever committed the murders hadn't just killed. They had left a message. All the mirrors had been covered. A slab of bacon was placed at the foot of the bed, wrapped in cloth. A bowl of bloody water sat calmly on the table, as if the killer had taken time to wash his hands. The axe itself was left behind, partially cleaned, leaning against the wall like an afterthought. Its blade still dripped. But the strangest detail? All the windows were tightly closed, and each one had been covered from the inside with clothing. The killer didn't want to be seen, not even by the moonlight. This wasn't frenzy. It was ritual. The first real suspect? A traveling preacher. Reverend George Kelly. Small, twitchy, and obsessed with sin. Known for pacing hotel loppers, talking to himself, and writing long, rambling sermons about damnation. He'd been in town for the church service the mice attended, and left by train early the next morning. Days later, Kelly began writing to investigators, claiming he knew things. That he had dreams, visions, of the murders. In 1917, 5 years after the killings, he was arrested. Under pressure, he confessed. In graphic detail. Describing how he crept from room to room, swinging the axe with religious fury. But during the trial, he recanted. Said he'd been coerced. The jury deliberated for hours, then let him go. To this day, no one knows if Reverend Kelly was a madman, or the killer who slipped through the cracks of justice. In the years surrounding the Villisca massacre, similar axe murders happened across the Midwest. Families slaughtered in their sleep. Curtains drawn. Lights left burning. A train line always nearby. Was it one man? A phantom drifter moving from town to town? Some believe Villisca was only one act, in a long, blood-soaked journey. One case in Colorado. Another in Kansas. The same weapon. The same eerie silence left behind. But no fingerprints. No motive. No one ever convicted. It was as if death rode the rails. Quiet. Invisible. Unstoppable. Decades later, a sealed letter was discovered in a dusty archive in Montgomery County. Dated 1912. Addressed to Josiah Moore. It was unsigned. But the message was clear. You wronged Moore. To have not forgotten. There will be blood. The handwriting matched that of a former business rival, Frank Jones. A powerful man in Villisca. Josiah had once worked for him, selling farm equipment. But they had parted badly. Josiah took the company's best account with him, and Frank never forgave him. Some doubted that Jones had hired a hitman, a known serial killer from Kansas, to teach Josiah a lesson. Of true, it worked. And no one was ever charged. But no hard evidence ever emerged. And Jones died with his secrets. The Villisca axe murder house still stands. You can visit it. Walk its narrow hallways. See the small children's rooms frozen in time. The beds have been remade. The attic remains silent. But something lingers. Guests say they hear footsteps at night. Whispers. A baby crying. Some say the spirits of the Moore children never left. Others believe the killer returned. Again and again. In 2014, a paranormal investigator spent the night in the Villisca house. Around 1 a.m., he was found crawling on the floor, bleeding from a self-inflicted wound to the chest. He refused to explain what happened. Said only this. The house told me to do it. And with that, the house at 508 East 2nd Street reminded the world, the murders may be history, but the evil never left. What really happened in Villisca? Who swung the axe? And why did they never kill again? Next time, we follow the trail of blood, across states, decades, and madness. Was Villisca part of something bigger? Or was it always personal? The year was 1911. 1 year before Villisca. In Ellsworth, Kansas, a family was slaughtered. In their sleep. With an axe. The father, mother, and children were found with their heads crushed, their faces unrecognizable. Curtains drawn. Doors locked. Food left on the table. Sound familiar? Then, in Monmouth, Illinois, another family. Same method. Same stillness. Same mystery. By the time the Moore family was murdered in 1912, at least 10 similar cases had occurred across the Midwest. All linked by railroads. All unsolved. It was as if a shadow was moving from town to town. with no motive, no mercy, just a sharpened axe, and a hatred buried too deep to trace. Decades after the murders, author Bill James, a statistician and baseball analyst, stumbled across the unsolved case of the Moore family. He wasn't a detective, but he saw something no one else had. A signature. He compiled data across multiple states and noticed the pattern. Families killed near railways. In small towns. Always at night. Always with an axe. Often the blade was removed after use, the handle gripped with cloth to avoid fingerprints. In his book, The Man from the Train, James proposed the name, Paul Mueller. A German immigrant. A woodcutter. A man suspected of killing a family in Massachusetts in 1897. And again vanishing. James believed Mueller boarded freight trains, stalked families he admired, and again killed them when the moment felt right. If true, Paul Mueller would be one of America's most prolific and unknown serial killers, with as many as 100 victims, including the mice. In 1994, Darwin and Martha Lynn purchased the Moore house. Gay restored it to its 1912 appearance. No electricity, no plumbing, just silence and memories. Then the stories began. Visitors claimed they saw a man standing at the foot of the children's bed. Footsteps echoed from the attic at night. Cold spots lingered in the parlor. A woman was reportedly scratched across the arm during a tour. She swears she never saw anyone there. And those who spend the night, they often wake at 2 a.m. sharp, the exact hour when the killer began his work. In 2006, a team of forensic scientists attempted to digitally reconstruct the Villisca crime scene. They used blood spatter patterns, luminol testing, and historical crime photos. Their conclusion: the killer was likely left-handed. He began in the parents' room, then the children, then the guests, always returning, always overkilling, almost as if he were performing. They also confirmed something truly chilling. Based on the pool of blood beneath each bed, the killer must have stayed in the house for hours after the murders. Just sitting, in the dark. Why? What was he waiting for? There's a theory some locals whisper about. A belief that Villisca was a sacrifice. That the killer wasn't human. Or at least, wasn't alone. That the house itself, 508 East 2nd Street, feeds on fur. That it called him in. And has been calling ever since. Some even say it started long before 1912. Back when the land was first settled. When native tribes warned settlers not to build homes in that valley. Too late now. Something was built. Something never left. In 2020, a well-known skeptic and ghost debunker stayed the night in the Moore house. He live-streamed the event. Joke. Laugh. Dared the spirits to show themselves. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the stream cut out. He was found in the morning, collapsed in the children's room. No wounds. No visible trauma. Just shaking, eyes wide open, and repeating the same 3 words over and over. It was smiling, it was smiling, it was smiling. The Villisca axe murders remain unsolved. The case is cold. But the house is not. It stands. Waiting. Breathing. And if you ever find yourself in Iowa and decide to visit, don't stay after midnight. Because something, someone, may still be watching. Do you think the killer was a drifter, or something darker? Leave your theories in the comments. Don't forget to like, and subscribe for more true crime cases that never stop haunting.